Welcome to Make Ready TV, where the world's most experienced firearms instructors train you one-on-one in the comfort of your own home. I'm Matt Jaques.
And I'm Kaylee Jeans. In our tactical training segment, we're going to talk to Kyle Harth about target selection.
And then we're going to go down to Florida at the Altair Training Facility, and Super Dave Harrington is going to talk about simply getting ready in our self-defense stage.
Nice. In our competitive shooting segment, we're going over to Oxford, North Carolina to meet up with Bob Vogel and talk about stage preparation.
Then to bring it all together, we're going to go out and see a couple of guys and talk about some pro tips. They're going to be Paul Howe, Dean Caputo, Tom Yost, and Jim Gilliland.
And now let's join Kyle Harth and talk about some targets.
We're going to talk a little bit about targets and target selection. This target that's next to me is an SEB target. I like this target quite a bit, and the reason why is because it offers me a lot of different options. Now, I'm not married to this target in any way, shape, or form, but what I like when I'm selecting a target is a target that gives me a couple of different things. I like being able to shoot at a silhouette, but it's too broad of a target to give me a precise aiming point. It's great when I'm training to shoot at people for defensive situations or police work or military work, but again, I have to very much be conscientious about where I select to shoot at. The reason why I like this particular target and targets like this are because it gives me different options in shapes that are different sizes. So I can use precise points of aim like the apex of this triangle, or I can use precise dots and numbers, and I can have people call out different numbers and I can shoot that number. I can make very precise shots in different locations on the target, but what it gives me also is a very usable target, which means I can shoot at this box, that one, and then down both sides, and I've got 9 different things to shoot at on the same target. If I'm gonna have to go spend my hard-earned money on a target, I'd like to use it for a lot of different things, and I'd like to be able to shoot at it a lot before I have to replace it. So a lot of times when I'm looking for targets, I'll look for something that gives me not only broad aiming solutions, but also gives me finer aiming solutions when I wanna try to work on the true accuracy of developing my rifle skills. Now, a lot of people will not shoot paper and they're real fans of shooting steel. I love shooting steel. I think it's a very valuable tool. Steel, when you shoot at it, gives you immediate feedback. It's gratification from ringing that steel. When you shoot it, you know you hit your target. The problem with steel is steel targets are typically fairly large. They're about silhouette size or man size, chest size plates. And the problem with that is you get lulled into a false sense of security about your accuracy when you're just ringing a piece of steel. Again, it's great for feedback, and it's great when you're shooting by yourself or you don't want to transit back and forth to the target to check it all the time. Now, you can see where your strikes hit steel if you'll paint that steel, because it'll chip the paint off in the areas where you hit it. However, again, a lot of guys start shooting steel before they're really proficient enough to shoot very small groups like this one or this triangle. And what happens is they think they're phenomenally good shooters and accurate shooters because they can hit a piece of steel that's this big. So again, watch what size targets you use. And I really like paper because I'll take the extra time to walk up and check a target just to see exactly where I am. If I've strung a group out too far, if I'm not controlling my trigger or my breathing correctly and I've let that group get too big, I can see that very well on paper, and I can also see it very well if I've picked a very fine aiming solution. And so I like targets that give me a lot of variety. Look around, there are a myriad of targets out there. Find ones that work for you. Find ones that give you the ability to really hone your skills in and get very, very accurate. And those are the kinds of targets, and that's the kind of training that will get you to the next level.
Make Ready TV is brought to you by FNH USA, Smith & Wesson, TNVC, and Pro Ears.
Kyle's got some great points on targets. I really love taking guys from paper and then working them into steel, but every now and again you got to reel them back on paper to bring them back into reality.
Yeah, that's what my dad always did say. Now let's go to the Everglades and check in with Super Dave Harrington.
Let's talk about getting ready, okay? You need to take into consideration, you've already made your plan, determined what it is you want to focus on or what your primary goals are, and you've selected your range location. A couple of key things in respect to your range location. You want to select a location that provides safety and security, whether it's a legit range complex or inside your home due to inclement weather, your backyard, from a standpoint of safety and security, not only for yourself, but for those in and around wherever you happen to be at, wherever you've decided to work at. Let's talk about your target selection, okay? Again, in support of what you're trying to accomplish. If you're focused on strict marksmanship, you may want to use a 25-yard bullseye at various ranges. I'm going to speak to that in just a second. You may want to use an IDPA target, paper targets, steel targets. Take into consideration the size of the target, shape of the target. The color of the target has an impact on your ability to perform. Example, if you're using a 25-yard bullseye with a black center and you have black sights, now you're lining up a front and rear black sight on a black target. It may cause your vision, as far as your visual perception of your sight alignment to blur. I personally like to use white. If I'm focused on a strict dry fire exercise and focused on strict marksmanship, I'll use basically an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a paster in the center. The targets that I'm using now are full-size IPSC silhouettes, steel targets, painted white. The white background gives me good color contrast with my sights, so it's easier for me to see what's going on with my sight alignment in respect to shooting. From a dry fire standpoint, target distance. If you take into consideration having targets at close range, that will allow you to be much more aggressive with your overall actions, your overall performance. I'm talking physically aggressive, visually aggressive with the sights, physically aggressive with the trigger. When I am focused on strict dry firing as well as doing dynamic dry firing tasks, I always use a full-size target at the appropriate distance I want to work on. My baseline distance is 25 yards. What you'll find is by setting a target up at 25 yards in respect to whatever your specific exercise is, when it boils down to the critical moment where you are pressing the trigger, you need to condition yourself to press the trigger clean and straight to the rear without disturbing the alignment of your sights. If you have a target at close range, it's going to naturally accelerate your actions, and you may not be developing the level of finesse required to deliver a precision shot at a legitimate distance. Here's a news flash for those of you that think that shooting a reduced size target at close range is going to simulate the reality of hitting an appropriate size target at respective distance. It's not going to do it, okay? If you use a reduced size target at close range, that's only going to develop the ability to hit a small target at that close range, whatever that distance is. What I like to do in respect to Dry firing, my baseline distance is 25 yards on a legitimate size target. The targets that I have at an intermediate range or at a closer range will allow me to be much more aggressive across the spectrum of mental and physical action. And I just want you to be aware that you can use multiple targets, but in the dry fire realm, you're only capturing the action of that one integrated shot. One thing I definitely want to drive home to you right now, you need to understand that when you're working with a firearm, any type of firearm, you always treat it as if it is loaded. You have to condition yourself to develop the level of awareness to apply muzzle awareness. That is whatever direction the muzzle's pointed in, whether the gun's loaded or not, it's immaterial. You need to always make sure that the weapon is pointed in a safe direction. Now, one thing that I know to be an absolute fact, if you will do it with an unloaded weapon, you'll do it with a loaded weapon. I've seen this movie time and again. People have a tendency to think that just because the gun's unloaded, that's an excuse for them to handle it in whatever manner they choose to do so. That's out. Always apply muzzle awareness. Always make sure your muzzle's pointed in a safe direction, regardless of what it is you're doing. And understand the simple fact that if you'll do it with an unloaded gun, chances are you'll do it with a loaded gun at some point.
Great job by Dave driving home those points of dry fire practice. And his intensity, that'll help drive it home even more.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Up next is Bob Vogel from Oxford, North Carolina, to go over some stage preparation.
I want to talk a little bit about my preparation just coming onto stages and what I do. Whenever you walk onto a stage at a match, whether it's IDPA or USPSA, first off you want to figure out where are the targets and how many rounds minimum on the course of fire. It's going to differ there between the two sports. IDPA, you're not going to be allowed to get on the stage until you're given the briefing. USPSA, a lot of times you'll be allowed on there the day before. So, but more what I want to talk about here is what we do once we figure out how to shoot the stage. That's where we really have to program it in our minds. And we do that by visualization more than anything. We have to have it just so programmed. There's two ways of doing it the way I see it. You can visualize it as you're seeing someone else shoot the stage, or you can visualize it as you're seeing yourself shoot the stage from behind the gun. I prefer the second way. I prefer to visualize, actually like close my eyes and see myself shooting the stage. See the sights come onto every target, see them lift off the target, come back down, lift off, come to another target. You have to memorize the order of the targets, because when you shoot, especially these longer courses, 3, 4, 5 different positions, 18, 20 rounds sometimes, you do not want any conscious thought in between the different arrays of that. When you finish one array of targets, it should immediately pop into your mind exactly what you're doing next, and you just instinctively flow and go through it. The top shooters have good times, not just because they move fast, but because they just go from this to this to this to this really quickly, because they have it down in their head. That's just very important. Some stages I walk up to and I look at them like, okay, I can do this 10 out of 10 times and I'm going to have about the same score. Other stages, they might have, a really hard shot or a really fast swinger or something like that. It's a little more of a gamble. You have to recognize those certain areas in the stage and give them the respect that they need. If you don't, they're going to burn you. And the last thing really is to realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint when you go to a match. We shoot 10, 12, 15 stages, whatever there might be. So many people are just running on that ragged edge. They might do really well in 1 or 2 stages, but then they're just going to crash and burn. You've got to go at that pace that you can go consistently through the whole match. So for me, I'm thinking that's more like 90-95% of what I'm capable of. Everything you're going to see me do out here, I could run that faster if I really want to. But that's going to be right on my ragged edge. It's going to be where I'm just going to go overboard and have something go really wrong. You know, have some misses or just blow a reload or something like that. I'm toning back. It's just like a throttle on a car for me, and I'm trying to go at that speed where I can maintain my rhythm and not, you know, lose traction or anything like that. So that's very important. The last thing that I do before I get up to shoot a stage in a match, and we all have anxiety, we all have nerves, some of us, you know, more than others at times, and for me it's not really predictable. There's been some times when I've been nervous when I really shouldn't have been. Other times were the biggest moments ever and I wasn't nervous, so it's not predictable. But when I get up to that stage and I'm loading and make ready and I'm getting ready to go, any kind of tension or anxiety that I have inside me, I need to get that out. I take a deep breath and I'll say something to myself, whatever that might be, and I'll breathe out and I'll just have that tension, that anxiety leave me. And I need to feel totally relaxed. And here's the thing, you have to, in a match, when it really counts, you have to count on your natural speed. You do not push in a match. Practice, that's the time for pushing. In a match, you have to go at your normal speed that you know you can maintain. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going at that, whatever, 90-95%, relax. And I train at speed. Everything I do, almost everything, is at speed, so I'm comfortable doing that. Therefore, I know that I can relax, even though I can feel really just totally relaxed and not really on edge. I'm still going to go at that natural speed, and that's what I can count on. So, to shoot a match consistent from beginning to end, that's my philosophy on how to do it. It's just as important in how you prepare and how your mental game is as your strategy on the stages.
Bob Vogel's obviously figured it out. The mental preparation for them stages, and he's got the accolades and championships to back it all up.
Definitely, and he is so fast. Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna look at his hands and see little flames coming out of his fingers. All right, next up, let's go to our pro tips.
The Make Ready TV Pro Tips are presented by Battle Comp Enterprises.
I want to give you a quick safety tip today. Anytime you take a knee in a tactical environment or on a flat range, I want you to practice. Again, follow through cover scan to your front, clear that threat area. Before you stand, clear to your rear. Again, you don't want to walk into a bullet or a muzzle, so good if nobody's there to pick you up, look before you stand.
One of the best things to do when you're preparing for a match is be prepared. When I travel across the country, I have a checklist that I go over and make sure I have every item I need before I leave. I also inspect all my items the night before any local match, as far as my glasses being clean, magazines being clean, gun being prepared, so that I don't get any unknown entity when I get to the event. Preparedness before prepares you for the day you're on the range, so there is no unknown factors happening.
One way to ensure that you're still maintaining that steady body position and your sight alignment through all of your shot process and keeping with those fundamentals is keeping your cheek placed on your stock. Now what that does through each shot is you're keeping your eye on your scope, and when you manipulate your bolt, you never take your eye off your sight. You don't change sight planes, nothing else changes except you put a new round in, you're ready to engage again. Another thing to help you out is there's two types of bolt manipulations, and you really need to work them. As soon as you realize that your follow through is complete, that's when you need to go into your bolt manipulation. That way you're always loaded and you can always take that second shot. The first technique, you get on your gun, pull your shot. As soon as your follow through is over, you're going to release your fingers, come straight up with a knife blade hand, rock your bolt back, push back forward with your thumb, come back down, and wrap your hand back on so you can re-engage. It's real smooth. Now, the second one, if you're really needing to crank your bolt and you've got to have control, and something most people use on their bolt action rifles anyway, is you can actually grab the bolt handle. That's one of the reasons why I have this tactical knob on here on most of my rifles, is so I can really get a hold of it and handle it. Come through your shot, break it clean, follow through is complete. I'm just going to release my hand, grab my grip. If you'll notice, I never moved my cheek, my sight plane was always the same, and I was able to manipulate my rifle quickly, easily, and efficiently. Practice these things while you're doing your dry fire drills, it'll make you a lot better marksman.
Your 1911 pistol can run dry. However, it's a good idea to keep some light lubrication on it. You don't need to have it dripping with lubrication so that if you're in a sandstorm or you're in a dusty environment, it turns into some kind of sand cookie. But any type of highlighted area, areas that show wear, is a good area to put lubrication. Obviously, the rails, the hood area. I like to put a little dab right around here where the bushing goes around. The front area on the bottom of the barrel where the toe rubs back and forth on the inside of the frame. Again, any bearing surface that shows marks probably is an area to put a little bit of lubrication and keep it running. And sometimes, if you have it, the grease or something like that is a good item for the bigger bearing surfaces like the frame rails and also the toe area of the barrel and stuff like that, because when you're done firing, one of the things that's interesting is when you take the weapon apart to clean it, you'll still see the grease there, whether it's TW25 or Shooter's Choice red grease or some of the other greases that are out there.
Make Ready TV is brought to you by Brownells, the SIG Academy, Rand Innovations, and Corbond.
Matt, this is a group of instructors I would just love to train with. All of them.
And right here on Make Ready TV and Panteao Productions is the one place you can find a lot of guys that are great to train with.
For more information on one-on-one training with our instructors, either via streaming video or DVD, check us out online at makereadytv.com.
We're going to bring this one to a close, folks. Before we come back next week, when you're out there training, remember, got to make sure you're safe. And we encourage you to take a non-shooter out with you. Try and bring them into the sport. Let's help grow the family. And remember, train smart, train often, victory first.
The Make Ready DVDs are available from Brownells.com.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Now let's go meet up with Kyle and pick out some targets.
I also carry the bail money when we go out on events like this. So basically I'm responsible for kind of like herding cats, babysitting, except for big, dangerous guys that carry guns and know how to use them.